Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Vox Vomitus, otherwise known as Word Vomit. I am your host, Jennifer Ann Gordon, the author of the Kindle Award-winning novel Beautiful, Frightening, and Silent, as well as the Hotel series and Pretty Ugly. Joining me today, as always, is my Vox Vomitus vixen, Allison Martine, authoress of the Bourbon books, which include Dibs, Since September, and Move On, Melinda. Joining us today is author Kerry Anne King, and we are going to be talking to her about her latest book, Other People's Things. Welcome, Kerry.
Thank you. I am delighted to be here today.
Well, we are delighted to have you. I would like you to tell our viewers and our listeners a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Other People's Things.
Okay, well, that's kind of a lot
That's
there.
A lot.
But I'll
just give us like random facts, like
random facts. Okay,
like,
about you, not the book.
About you,
about me. Random facts. Let me see.
You're married to a Viking.
I'm not married to a Viking. I live in sin with a Viking, but we're good.
Even better.
Go on.
Tell us about this Viking.
I live with a real life Viking. We met through online dating, and we've been together for 15 years or so, I do believe. I have a landlocked tugboat, which has been renovated into a lovely little place where I can sit in the forest and look out in the trees and write if I want to.
Wait, the tugboat's in the forest?
Yes.
Later, you'll have to explain how the tugboat got to the forest.
I could do that.
It sounds like a children's book, doesn't it? How the tugboat got to the forest.
Climate change.
No, because we also live on top of a mountain, sort of. So it's very cool to have the tugboat there. Let me see. I am owned by 2 cats and a dog. I have seen a mountain lion in my backyard.
And you still have 2 cats?
And you still have 2 cats and 1 dog.
Yeah, 2 cats, 1 dog. Perhaps we used to have more. No, it's okay. None of the animals to this date have been eaten by predators. So that's totally bonus.
Yeah.
Let me see. Random facts.
This podcast might have just taken a really dark turn if that had been the case. Like, oh no, Kerry.
We don't want to talk about that. I do. Okay, here's another random fact. I have a weird, quirky, dark sense of humor, and I have to say that a podcast called Word Vomit just makes me happy. It makes me really exorbitantly happy.
Yay. You know, sometimes we get people who are like, oh, when we say word vomit, and they're like you see they're like flinch a little, like, why am I on a show?
Because
what did my publicist agree on my behalf? Do I need a new publicist?
They didn't know Latin, and therefore, okay, another random fact about me. When I got my English degree, I thought, I love English. I want to be a writer. I should study all the parts of English. So I took a Latin class. Absolutely loved it. I took Anglo-Saxon, totally got into it. I did an independent study that was translating Anglo-Saxon and Latin texts into English because I'm nerd out like that. And I took French. So, kind of all of the components of English.
Very cool.
Yeah. Super nerdy. I like it.
All right. So now just tell us a little bit about Other People's Things.
Okay. Other People's Things is one of the most fun books that I've ever written. I got to bring both my Kerry Schafer self, which is another random fact because I also write books as Kerry Schafer, and she likes to write weird paranormal mystery, fantasy kind of stuff. And Kerry Anne King, who writes psychological drama, family drama, that kind of thing. I was able to bring both of myself together a little bit with this book. So this is the story of a young woman who is compelled to move objects from one place to another. People call her a thief. They have diagnosed her with kleptomania. Really, she's not. It's an object relocation program and also a problem because she is always and forever moving things that are not hers, and that causes a lot of trouble for her. So that's the short book premise for you.
No, that's that's just enough to tease our listeners with. Kerry, I'm so glad. I know we were talking before you were on the show about which book we were going to promote. And I'm kind of obsessed with the cover of Other People's Things. And I was just like, but I didn't know what it was about. Yeah, I read the ebook. So
it's right behind you too. Yeah. I know you probably don't remember that because you've got your virtual thing up, but it's like right
I can see it. I know it's there. I just have to show my book whenever I can.
It's beautiful.
It's right here and I have one.
So I will say I loved the cover. I didn't know the premise. I assumed for some reason it was going to be a thriller. And I remember asking you, I'm like, is this a thriller? And you're like, no. No. And then I said, well, what is it? And you were just like, well, it's, a family drama with maybe some magical realism and I'm like, oh, and you said all these things that normally don't go together. And that's what made me say, this is the perfect book for us to read because it checked off the boxes I like and the boxes that Allison likes.
Well, and I even was asking, like, I don't even know what this is. I was maybe 100 pages in. I don't know, because I was listening to it. So I was probably at least 2 hours in. I'm like, I still don't know what I'm listening to, but I like it. And it didn't even matter to me that I'm going, where would this be in the bookstore? Okay, fiction. And then beyond that, I have no clue.
Well, technically it's published by Lake Union, which makes it women's fiction, or book club fiction. So we can go with
book club fiction a genre?
I have no idea.
That's not a genre.
Darn, I was hoping you would know.
Sorry, but like whatever a book club picks is the book club fiction, and women's fiction is whatever women read. So neither one of those are really genre.
I think it's when it pairs well with wine, like a cheese.
Well, okay. No, there are many books that pair well with wine. Sometimes it's because you are loving the read and it's luxurious and it's a really nice thing to have with wine. And sometimes it's like, oh, this is just like such word vomit. I need a lot of wine, possibly from a box, in order to,
or a can.
Or a screw top.
Screw top.
I almost drank some canned wine tonight.
Oh, dear.
But it was so cold. I have canned mimosas. They're not good.
Wait, no, you shouldn't can orange juice and no.
I didn't. I didn't go to the store and pick them out.
Canned mimosas?
I'll have words with them later.
It was just so funny. He was just, it's my darling husband and our producer. He came home and he was like, look what I got you. And I was like, a canned mimosa. So I almost drank it tonight.
Darling. And he's here listening now, so we can that we didn't say these things.
If we have technical problems, we know why.
And he's gonna be like, oh, it's weird that Jennifer's microphone stopped working halfway through the podcast.
Well, maybe because he's drinking the canned mimosa. That's interesting. So I can't. I'm seeing you drink your lovely cocktails, and it is 3:07 in the afternoon for me, and it doesn't.
Same. Are you? Yeah, I'm in Orange County, so
I am in Washington State.
Okay, so we're just you're just north.
It's nighttime where I am.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
But confession, I used to always drink during the show, even though it was 3:00 and I'd usually drink bourbon. But now I go and take my children to choir after this. And I'm not allowed to drink and drive. So
showing up for children's choir with bourbon breath is also sometimes highly discouraged.
I feel like that's like the beginning of a different kind of book club book. Like the ones about like the bad moms.
Yeah. Bad Mom
book club. I've never actually been. Here's another little random fact about me. I have never been a member of a book club, so I don't know what they read.
I've never been a member of a book club, but I've talked at a book club, and it was lovely. It was a lovely experience, but there was a lot of wine being consumed.
I think it's a thing.
Yeah. Well, and I've been. I wouldn't be like a member, but I've done like women's book clubs where the book is picked out, and they generally are books that I'm like, why did I agree to read this? So the idea that like a literary book club is a genre makes me nervous because I'm going, does this mean I'm automatically going to hate this book? And I would say your book is the opposite of that, because I would be handing this book to other people going, definitely check this out, even though I'm really still not sure. I finished the book and I'm still not sure what genre it belongs.
Well, I'm really happy to hear that. This is how I read. I read eclectically. I always have. I will read pretty much anything. If I like the characters and the writing is good, I don't really much care about anything else. I will just happily read along. So when I go to write, I tend to do the same thing. It's really hard to stick in a little box.
It really is.
Boxes are uncomfortable.
Boxes are uncomfortable. And I will say, Allison and I have been hosting this show for about a year and a half almost.
Yeah, we're getting near a year and a half.
We're getting close to a year and a half. And I think the books that we've enjoyed the most are the ones that afterwards, when we have our little book talk between each other, we say, what was that we just read? Like, where does it fit? In Barnes and Noble, what shelf am I finding this on? And for me, I love it when things bend the genres. Like, I loved the object relocation program. Like, I just, as somebody who like is new agey enough I too think objects have like energy. And so the idea of objects kind of telling a woman, I don't belong here. It's your job to move me someplace else. I was just like so on board with that.
I like that too. And then what was fun was making that be, and this is kind of a belief of mine, that things want to connect. So there are people who need to be brought together. There are things that want to happen, and there needs to be a catalyst to kind of move things around and make that happen. So it was great fun to let Nicole be this person who actually got into the middle of a mystery because she moved a book, and that
Just
changed
a paperback.
everything. A paperback.
Yeah.
Just
A used paperback.
a used paperback.
Yes.
So what's kind of odd for me is the first book that it started reminding me of when we got into the whole idea of she has kleptomania, but specifically she's like, I'm not stealing it because I'm not taking it for me. I'm moving the object because it needs to be moved. Is a book that I recently finished called Bubblegum by Adam Levine. I don't know if you're familiar with the book.
I am not.
It is one part of a very weird, very big book, but the book deals with a now grown-up man who, when he was younger, was accused of or had committed these things called the swing set murders. He goes around murdering swing sets and other inanimate objects. But again, he's speaking to the object, and the object, if the object is no longer fulfilling its purpose, is asking him to basically put it out of its misery.
Okay, I'll be reading this.
Where it's like,
I love that. Sorry, my jaw is open.
Yeah, the inanimate object is having this conversation with him and basically saying, you know, for the swing set, if the kids are all grown and I'm all rested and I'm just out here still existing and I don't want to anymore. So like I was waiting for you to call them the inans, because that's what he refers to. It's like, oh, when the inans are talking to me, that's the same thing. And the book otherwise is nothing like yours, but it was the same weird connection. I'm going, I like this book.
That is an interesting connection. I like that. By the way, it should be euthanasia, perhaps, and not murders. If they're
like, well, that's
asking for it.
He was seen doing this, and he got the name of this, like the swing set murders. And
very cool.
And same kind of thing where people were misunderstanding what he was doing and thinking what was driving him. And same kind of thing where his mother makes him make a promise that you're not going to destroy anybody else's property, but then it puts him at direct conflict when he's being asked to do so by the object, versus they don't understand, hey, no, I'm not just being destructive, or in Nichols' case, I'm not taking these things for me, but the object really wants to be somewhere else. It's not my idea. Ask the bear.
Right, exactly. Poor bear.
Oh, the bear. So you also did a really good job of dealing with psychological issues like anxiety disorder, and especially the way you dealt with anxiety disorder. As somebody with anxiety disorder, I loved it. I was just like, oh
good. Thank you. I'm glad I got it right.
That's real. Yeah. That's exactly how it feels.
Yeah, we may be overqualified in that regard, Jen, to talk about how accurate some of that stuff was. And the whole I know I shouldn't be mixing this with that, but I've had a sip of wine and the only answer is more wine.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, oh, Andrea, we've all been there.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved Andrea, actually. She, so much different inside than what she appears to be on the outside. So she was a very fun character to write.
Well, I'll say even your most unlikable character was still interesting enough for me that I was like intrigued by him. Mm-hmm. It's hard to find a book, I think, for me that every character I'm like, oh, I like all of these people.
Ooh.
I didn't
like them, but I was intrigued. That's different.
I didn't like, obviously our big bad. I didn't like Kent. Is it Kent? Yes.
Spoiler.
Yes.
I know.
He's the big bad.
Well, he's the ex-husband.
Right. But he doesn't come across at the beginning like the big bad. So someone reading it may not know right away. Maybe they're just like, I'm just going to assume because he's the ex-husband that he's...
I think that's why I assumed.
You're like, I don't trust you inherently by your title.
That was exactly it. I was just
but there were other people. I mean, yes, he was one, but there were other bads along the way who I thought, again, you rounded out really well and made them plausible and believable, but I still wanted to punch them.
Yes. Well, this is good. I try to make all my characters human. And I can't remember which training it was that I went to, but it really stuck with me where the writer who was teaching us writing things was talking about, if you can make somebody cry when you kill off your bad person, you've really done something. And in this book, I didn't really try to do that, obviously, because really what I was aiming for was the really, really awesome feeling when the bad person gets something coming. We all like that very satisfying thing. But to at least have that level of humanity, because nobody is entirely bad or entirely good. Well, maybe there are a few people. I'm thinking in my Rolodex, let's qualify that. There might be a few people.
Your Rolodex.
Pretty bad.
Like through history and go, well, Hitler was entirely. No, you just mean in your own personal life. You're like, well, this person's definitely on that list right now.
Yeah. I can't think of anything good about that person.
Although I've got a few in my email contacts. Let's just go that. I don't have a Rolodex.
There are a few, but okay. So I'm thinking about the movie Firefly, for example. Have you guys seen the movie Firefly?
Firefly.
And if you have not, what is wrong with you?
What Firefly is in Serenity?
It's in Serenity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Firefly's the series, Serenity's the movie, and I'm like,
Serenity
is there another movie called Firefly? No,
I got it backwards.
Sure.
No,
you're good.
No. The movie is Serenity. When the bad dude, you care about him.
He's not a bad dude. He's the antagonist.
He's a believer. Well, he is, because he goes around killing the people that we love. But at the same time, dude,
That's
semantics.
semantics.
You get it.
Semantics. Potato,
tomato. Potato, cauliflower, same thing.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, I know that they talk about what are some of the good villains, and the villain is the one that you are going, okay, you think they have a really good case and you're probably going to root for them too. And I won't say that the villains in this had a good case. They don't, but they're interesting.
No, they're interesting. And they seemed like real people. Like there was never a point where I was like, you're bad guys or girls. They never seemed cartoonishly villainish.
The mustache twiddling.
I know. I was going to do that, Allison.
Twiddling our fake mustaches.
I know, but then I was like, how do I do that?
I'll just use my hair. And that's a different look. This is just me being a space cadet when I'm like, ooh, that's different. Oh, nice. Fake mustache.
So now we're all doing it. Okay.
Fake mustache, and then we have to twirl our fake mustache. I'm going to get you because I can. Now I'm
get
eating
you,
my
my
hair.
lovely. Actually, what I was trying to do in this book with Kent was I like playing with the idea that everybody looks at Nicole and sees her as a bad person. She has a rap sheet. She's always in trouble. She's always stealing things. She's a thief. But they look at Kent and see a good guy because he's, upstanding citizen and all of that. And I really liked then playing that out, where when you really get down to it, maybe what we see isn't really the case.
I felt like that was super accurate. And the only quibble I'll have with it is having been a former lawyer, is generally people aren't going to assume you're the good guy if you're a lawyer. That's usually an automatic strike against you right there.
But,
a long time.
But he was so good looking that I feel like
he's handsome.
He's so handsome. When people are like so good looking, it's like, well, he can't possibly be bad because he looks like a movie star, and he's wearing like lovely khaki pants and he gives us gifts.
He takes us to nice restaurants.
What's really sad is that we are wired that way. Like the psychological studies that have been done is that we tend to like and trust good-looking people more first. Why?
I know. Well, I mean, probably the same reason why, I don't know, like peacocks are so beautiful. Like something weird in our DNA, like the nature of it all. Something with mating. I don't know. I didn't go to school for science.
Right. Well, which was what was kind of fun about Hawk, who I created, because I deliberately made him not particularly, look at this guy, he's gorgeous. And yet
in my brain, he was Adam Driver.
Mine too. I was just going to say he was gorgeous in my head.
He was gorgeous.
If he was trying not to be good looking, he failed.
Yeah. He was tattooed Adam Driver.
Yeah. Part of that was just as soon as you said how tall he was and how he would go back and forth, like trying to make himself smaller and less intimidating versus doing that. I'm like, okay, so when Adam Driver curls over and is like getting down in somebody's face and they're been very sweet versus taking up that full space.
Yeah, I pictured Hawk as Adam Driver and Kent as like Ryan Gosling.
Ooh, yeah. That's perfect.
and I was obviously Nicole.
I think that makes me Andy.
Well,
we can share Nicole responsibilities.
That's
we can
okay.
trade off.
I took something that wasn't mine. I'm a mother. I'm always putting things. I'm always in the
You're always
relocation problem. Why is this on my husband's desk? This is my daughter's. They're children's binoculars. Why is this here?
That's a very good question.
But it matches your book. It's very cute.
It does.
Don't mind me.
So, Kerry, tell us about your writing process. Are you organized? Do you do 50,000 words of word vomit and then go, I better figure out what the plot is sometime
I love how
soon.
you're like, are you organized? Like, that's a bad thing. Like, are you one of those people?
I'm still baffled by it every time. Like, I spent a whole weekend with writers hearing about how organized they were, and I'm like,
oh my gosh,
huh,
no, I
yeah.
try. I will tell you. Here's the truth. So here's what always happens, and I'm in the middle of doing it right now. Again, no matter how hard I try to do it different. With Lake Union, my current publisher, in order to get a book contract deal, I have to send them a very detailed synopsis with a full plot, beginning to end.
Oh my
How long
gosh.
is a detailed synopsis? Because I've only ever done, hey, the brief one that the publishers want, and then you're like, okay, they want a page. Do they think they'll be okay?
No, this
with
is
a page
like
and a half?
this is like 10, at least 10,
Okay, so this
maybe
is like
20.
a detailed
I think I sent
outline.
them 20.
20?
So I've done this and the first couple chapters. So fortunately, they know me well by now. And we all know that at some point, as I'm writing along, I'm going way off the rails and it is not going to follow this at all. So I'm currently writing next year's book. I'm in revisions and I just cut 30,000 words and I'm changing. Oh, I know. But I know we'll do it.
That's like a limb.
It's like no matter what I do, no matter how I try to plot or if I try to be organized, I always end up doing this because the story has life of its own. The characters have a life of its own. For me, it's really all about listening to what is this actually instead of what I try to impose on it. And so when it gets to revisions, I have to take away all of the things that I tried to force on the structure of this book and the characters that they didn't want and take that away, look at what's really there, and then build that into a cohesive, unified structure using scenes that I know need to happen at certain intervals and stuff so that there's plot. And
You're like a narrative relocation program.
Narrative relocation
I love
program.
that. Yes, that's
Exactly. I know. I was thinking it's a chapter relocation program where it's like,
Mhm.
this belongs over here. This belongs in a different book.
Yeah.
This doesn't belong anywhere.
This doesn't belong
Why do
anywhere.
they
This
write
belongs
you
in the
in?
garbage.
You can get your own book. Just pick them up by the head. Just take them.
So do you save these words? Do you
I
save
do.
these 30,000 words and just put them in like a file
I do.
on the
It's called
computer?
the graveyard file. Because it comes from Bury Your Darlings. Thank you, Stephen King. And as a matter of fact, funny thing, because I emailed my editors back something about this. There was one scene that they wanted me to cut. And I was like, I totally understand why you want me to cut it. And I get it. And I will. But damn, I love that scene. And the editor came back with, I will always help you murder your darlings and bury them. So
that's how they know they love you if they're willing to do that to help.
So it needed to go. I totally get that. It was something that was so freaking much fun to write, but which is good because then I had the fun of writing it and now it goes away and doesn't mess up the book. So I buried them in a file called the Darlings file. And I do get to pull things out of there. So often as I'm writing along, then I'll be like, oh, wait, I sort of remember this little bit of a scene or this paragraph or these words or whatever that I can still use. And then I go find them and bring them back. So
do you ever bring back a whole character, but in a different book? Like a character that just couldn't leave your memory. And then you're just
I have never done that.
You're gonna now because you just put it in your head.
You say that as somebody who has done this.
I kind of have. Like turning out a very side nothing character that I kept trying to cut into one of the most major characters in a book where I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? She's so not likable. It was Agnes.
Okay, I knew it was Agnes. As soon as you said that, I'm like, we're talking about Agnes, aren't we?
We're talking about Agnes.
I did once take a character from a friend who was going to cut him. And I'd been reading her book and she was cutting this character. And I was like, I want him. Can I cut him?
Character relocation program.
Yeah, it was fun. That was a book that was never published, by the way, that I did that with. But it was like, you know what? I kind of like this character. I can I borrow him? So
it just sounds like she's about ready to break up with her boyfriend, and you're like, well, if you don't want him, I'll date him.
So did you have to have an awkward conversation with your friend, like, so that character that you created, you're not interested in him anymore, right? Because I feel like that character and I clicked.
We clicked.
We had some chemistry.
Yeah, it was kind of like that, but it wasn't very awkward because she really didn't have feelings for him at all. So
she didn't say, what do you see in him?
Real people.
They are
real people. I swear to
She
God.
had feelings for him, and then her parents didn't like him, and then like they just wanted different things out of life.
Don't you think they are real people?
She didn't want him to exist.
When a character has really been created, so think about a book that you really loved, like especially from your childhood. Don't try and tell me that Joe March and Anne of Green Gables are not real people. I'm sorry, they're real. They exist. Scout totally exists. You know, there are all of these characters out running around in the world, in our subconsciouses anyways, and they're just as real as many people that I've met and forgotten about. Well,
they're certainly more interesting than a lot of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will grant you that. I'm just laughing, like, the idea of talking. It's like, well, I know he was yours, however, and, you know.
But I feel like we could have a future together.
I know. I think you got to sit down there with a mediator who's like working through the divorce proceedings for her. Or is it like a custody thing? You know, like Kramer versus Kramer here.
Okay. Kramer versus Kramer.
Here's where I admit so now somebody will steal this idea because I'm talking about it. But I really think that it would be fun to write a book that was totally like that, where it was, you know, sort of a weird kind of fantasy thing where, yes, they were characters and we all knew they were characters that had been written into books, but there was this whole system going on of, you know, custody battles and authors who want, you know, whatever.
The closest I can think so far would be like Wreck-It Ralph. Did you see Wreck-It Ralph?
I didn't.
Like Jen doesn't have kids, so she doesn't have to see these kid movies that I've been subjected to all of them. But the basic premise is you do have characters leaving their video games and ending up in games they don't belong in and causing some havoc. So it's like, yep, there we go. Oh no.
So see, I was thinking it was like the TV show Penny Dreadful, where you have Dorian Gray and, you know, the Wolfman and Mina Murray and all of these characters from fiction.
Isn't that League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
It's sort of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen too,
I didn't get through that whole movie. It was too long, and
I only read the graphic novel. But Penny Dreadful's different, and it was quite lovely. And it was a TV show for 3 seasons, and I recommend it to everybody. But those were all public domain characters, so there was no fighter.
It would also be just very fun to have it kind of from the point of view of the characters and have them be being written by someone like me. And it's like, wait a minute, you're not a doctor anymore? You're just like a grocery store clerk? What happened? You went to medical school. You know, it's like, well, not anymore.
And like these characters saying like, I don't want to go live with you in Washington. I was living in Florida and I liked it there.
I read a Regency novel. Why am I in a sci-fi? Put on your spacesuit and shut up.
Or, you know, like I was living with somebody who writes sweet romance and now all of a sudden I'm in like one of Jennifer's books. And
that's not a good relocation. I'm sorry.
It happened to me now.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you hop from one of my books,
Haunted Island.
Yeah, Jen, if you take one of my characters and put it in yours, that it will not end well for any of them.
See, I know.
It would be fun, wouldn't it?
That would be fun. Now I'm just like, oh, I really want to do like a girls trip now with Allison's character Olivia and Nickel and have them end up on my haunted Dagger Island and just see what happens. And then they can drink wine. Lots of wine. And then hijinks.
That sounds like a blast to me.
Oh yeah, it would be fun for everybody. I mean, it would be fun for me to write it, but
like it'd be fun for me to write it when I kill off your people.
No, I would feel bad.
Like I thought you liked Olivia. How dare you? So Kerry, you write under 2 different names, but you're still always Kerry. I mean, I love that your website there is allthingskerry.com. So how do you decide that this one was going to be under Kerry Anne King? Was that a contractual thing where you go, okay, are they both through the same publisher? Do you publish with 2 different names, 2 different publishers?
Kerry Schafer at this point is totally indie and just having fun, not making any money, and kind of being the tax write-off version of Kerry Anne King, which is cool. It's fun because I can write whatever I want and nobody tells me what to do, which is good. No, Other People's Things was always meant to be a women's fiction, and it mostly is. Like, primarily, it is a growth arc story, which is really the definition of the genre. So it needs to be a person who is on a journey of discovery and personal growth. And that really is the case for Nicole. That's the biggest thing, is learning to accept, I have this thing, and maybe it's a curse, maybe it's a gift. How do I step into this? How do I use it to make my life better instead of letting it run me? How do I run it? So,
and I think that's a really good way of putting it, simply because it seemed like how other people viewed her was so much influencing how she saw herself. Right. And it was the first few people to start saying, well, maybe it isn't this. Maybe you should look at it this way. Right. Maybe you should look at these relationships this way. And I think one of the ones that really stuck with me is why did he marry you in the first place?
Right. Yeah.
Like, so when people first start asking that, and not in a, why did he marry you? But like, no, but why did he marry you? And what is he getting out of this? And then forcing her to start really looking at that relationship and going, I always thought it was this, and maybe it's something very different with maybe not so good, so pure motives and intentions. Yeah.
You did a really good job of getting in Nicole's head when she was putting all of the pieces together of what her relationship was. Oh, I thought it was sweet when he bought me this beautiful outfit with a long sleeve blouse. But, maybe he's just trying to cover my tattoos. It's like,
when he's at the table and intentionally or not intentionally pushing that up so it can be seen, that those tattoos that he's trying to cover, I did let them be seen.
Right. Yeah. Because he was taking pleasure in making her look it really is psychological abuse. And it's an interesting thing, because all of my books seem to have this theme of late with the abuse.
Are you okay, Kerry?
I'm fine. That's the interesting thing.
You need help.
I'm fine, everyone.
What I was just going to say was the interesting thing, because I seem to be writing this a lot ever since, which was the one I really got into, that was Whisper Me This. And they've all had this domestic violence or abuse theme since then. My life has been dramatically free of that stuff, honestly. I'm one of the women who escaped all of that, and I'm very eternally grateful. I had this absolutely amazing father. Speaking of the tugboat, we named it after him. His nickname was Mr. Big, so the tugboat is named Mr. Big.
That's so cute.
So that's cool. My brother really is my hero. He's just my big brother is just one of those men that the whole world should be that way. And, my deceased husband was a lovely man. My current Viking is just
I love that's the relationship. Current Viking.
My current Viking. Like, there will be another
current
Viking.
I was going to say, like, there was a past Viking and a future. The once and future Viking.
I like that. The once and future
Viking.
Viking.
That's a good title too. Write that.
I'm like, write that down.
Actually, that's good. There are Vikings in the book I am currently writing right now. Actually, it takes place on a made-up island that's a complete theme park destination, which has some Vikings involved. So anyways, back to what I was talking about.
I want to go there.
I have had no personal history with any kind of domestic violence or psychological abuse from men. And I feel very grateful about that. But as a counselor, it really, really did hit me. I worked with a lot of women who were in these kind of relationships, and a lot of them didn't even know it. And so that was part of what I was playing on, mostly with Kent and Nicole, was the women I've talked to. They'd be just like, wait,
that was abuse?
Let's talk about that for a minute. That's, there's this thing called gaslighting that maybe you should know about,
Well, and honestly, I would say Kent was gaslighting her entire family, not just her, because he was gaslighting her about how she saw herself, but even the things he was saying about her. And I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but there's something that he says later and passes off to everyone as like, well, yes, this is what's going to happen. And she's like, he never even talked to me about this. This is not happening. Oh, you mean this isn't? No, it's not. But everybody believes him.
Right.
And it makes it sound like, oh, well, why don't you just go along with it? And
right.
the fact that all of her family is just like, he's good looking and has money. What is your problem?
Yeah. And he loves you so much.
Right. And I think this happens a lot to women. And so I feel really strongly about all of that. I like to try to expose that wherever I can, because I want women to be free and independent and in relationships with men because they want to be and because they're valued and have equal status and standing in the relationship. So
almost like we're real human people.
Like we're real human beings. Yeah.
Oh, that's the fantasy aspect of your.
But see, it's not. See, for me, that's not fantasy. I know, but I know
a Viking.
She's got a Viking.
I do.
No, but I mean, I understand. My current husband, my amazing husband. That makes
it sound like you're going to have a future one of them too.
Well, once a future husband.
Once a future Viking, once a future husband. No, is incredible. He's like, it's really incredible. But I've had a Kent in my past. So I really, again, like so much of this book resonated with me down to, and I have to say this because this is so dorky, but I love it. Your main character, Nicole, had a Lady of Shalott quote tattooed on her body, and I have a Lady of Shalott quote tattooed on my body. We didn't have the same quote, but...
That's very cool. I love the Lady of Shalott poem.
And I almost got the quote that she had as my tattoo, but I was like dangerously close. And then I'm like, oh, I'm glad I didn't, because then she had a conversation of, well, I was 14. And I'm like, oh,
this does not speak as well to me as I thought.
I know, I'm like, oh, I got mine when I was 40.
She's also trying to downplay all of that because she's just met Hawk and she doesn't want him to know that she has a curse.
I'm totally fine.
I'm totally fine. I'm not cursed.
I'm perfectly normal. All
to the hot Adam Driver.
Yeah.
Well, and if he wasn't hot in your mind, who would you have cast him?
He was totally hot in my mind.
I was going to say, dream casting this. I would have loved to see this as a mini series. So if someone can make that happen, I'm on board.
We're talking to you, Hawk? Netflix.
Yeah, Amazon Prime.
Also,
you know
Hulu?
what? Here's the really sad thing is I have not seen anything for so long that's current on Netflix or anywhere that I would.
So you have no actors. You're like, so Al Pacino, is he still around?
Is he still hot?
We would not go with Al Pacino. I don't know. I honestly don't know, but I would love to have it be a series. Where we live, this is the downside of where we live, is the only internet we can get is satellite, and it buffers forever. If you try and watch anything.
That's not a good way to watch movies.
No. Mm-hmm. Plus, they give you this limit of how much data you're allowed to use before they slow you down. So we don't watch anything streaming at all. And so that leaves me kind of
strictly VHS for you.
Well, even that is hard to come by these days. So really, it's just kind of the cable and a lot of reruns. We watch a lot of NCIS. A lot of NCIS and
Mark Harmon.
Yeah,
it's Mark Harmon.
So Hawk is like a taller version. No, maybe
no. Hawk just is Hawk. Hawk knew exactly who he was, showed up and announced himself to me in the shower, by the way. You would like to hear about that probably.
Wow.
So speaking of my messy process, Hawk did not exist until about 3/4 of the way through the book.
I did.
I'm going to bring you back to chapter 1. Drop.
I think I read that. Was it in your acknowledgments or
yeah,
somewhere?
Probably.
I read that.
I'm very grateful to Hawk for showing up because he saved the book. The book really wrote itself for the first, 3/4 of the way through. I called it the gift book, and it was just a delight, and it was easy, and everybody showed up, and I was just writing, and then all of a sudden it wasn't working, and I got stuck, and I didn't know what I was going to do, and I was in the shower hanging out with the muse, and Hawk. He showed up in the shower. It's like, hello, I'm Hawk. I'm a very large man, and my face is not particularly beautiful. My mother even, I'm not. Anyway, I forgot what the line was I put in there. He had irregular features and all that kind of stuff. But anyway,
So far,
I'm
you're
a
still
private
describing Adam Driver.
Adam
I'm a
Driver.
private.
Hold
I'll
on.
have to look up Adam Driver now. I'm a private investigator, and I am here to solve your problems. He said to me, and I said, "Speaking of characters being real, I was like, great, awesome, come on board.
Solve my book, please.
I'm delighted to see you." But then, yeah, I had to go back to the beginning and write him in. So,
Fair.
Well, writing is rewriting. So
oh yeah, absolutely.
it's all part of it.
Revision really means seeing again.
Yeah.
Literally.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it
really.
does. I've
It
never heard
actually
you
does.
put it that way.
Oh gosh,
Oh, I
Allison
like
and
that.
I are like, oh.
The scales just came off my eyes.
Uh-oh.
This is what now this happens with Jen. 40 minutes, she will pop off. She will be back on.
Oh, okay.
Eventually,
Okay.
we'll figure out why that happens and get her a different system. But in the meantime, it's fine. She'll be
Wait.
back in a second.
That's cool.
Now
That's
we're good. There she is. See?
Speaking of living in the middle of nowhere, having internet problems.
But she's back. We're good. We're
I'm
good.
back. I know. I was like, oh, we're getting actually close to the witching hour anyways. We are out of time.
Oh, sadly.
Sadly. Kerry, you were awesome.
Well, thank you.
You were awesome. Your book was awesome. Like, as Jen and I say, the trifecta.
The trifecta.
Good guess, good book.
Good guess, good
Perfect
book.
show.
Perfect show. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Kerry, thank you for being here. Everybody who is watching us live, tuning into the replay, or listening to us just on the audio, make sure to come back next week when we have guest Vera Kurian and her book Never Saw Me Coming. Until then, catch up on all of our back shows. There's plenty of them. Thank you to Roman and Pam and everybody at the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. This has been a copywritten podcast, and we will see you all next week.